9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, Weaver Whales. Happy first day of school. I am so excited that each and every one of you are going to be joining us today. For those of you I haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Dr. Schmidt, and I am the very proud principal here at Weaver Elementary, and I cannot wait to get to meet each and every one of you. This is going to be an absolutely amazing year, and you want to know why? Because we have you here. And I'm also so thrilled because we have not only you, we have these amazing teachers, we have this incredible staff, and we are part of a really, really unique community. We call it the We Are Weaver community. And again, so happy that you are here. So let's get everything started. Can I have everybody please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please be seated. Oh, happy birthday. We have so many people who had a birthday in July, and since today is July 31st, I want to take a moment to wish every one of these people a very happy birthday. So bear with me. This may take a little bit here, but we're going to hit all of the July birthdays. Starting July 1st, from Mrs. Calder's class, happy birthday to Ashley Kim. From Mrs. Simon's class, Ario Medizadeh. And from Miss Peel's class, Melanie Sun. On the 2nd, from Mrs. Holland's class, Wes Tran. On the 3rd, from Miss Aiken's class, happy birthday to Lauren Fu. On the 4th, from Mrs. Otani's class, Grant Haig, happy birthday, pal. On the 5th, from Mrs. Demos's class, Ava Broussard. On the 6th, from Miss Holland's class, James Bauer. From Mrs. Walter's class, happy birthday to Laith Husami. And from Miss Peel's class, Serafina Nashid. On the 8th, from Mrs. Simmons' class, Beckett McCoy. On the 9th, from Mrs. Hahn's class, Inez Kim. On the 10th, from Miss Bernie's class, Brooklyn Smith. And from Miss Arasato's class, Julia Yang. On the 11th, from Mrs. Nguyen's class, happy birthday to Cora Boylan. On the 12th, from Miss Arasato's class, Leah Kairos. And from Mrs. Kwok's class, Ditzy Ketzliger. From Dr. Tom's class, Desmond Ovadia. And from Mrs. Kwok's class, Emily Saltzman. On the 13th, from Mrs. Aiken's class, Liberty Molinowski. On the 15th, from Mrs. Otani's class, Riley Simonza. Happy birthday, pal. On the 17th, from Miss Masamia's class, happy birthday to Grayson Bohal. And from Miss Arasato's class, Hunter Copeland. From Miss Bernie's class, Emily Naime. On the 18th, from Miss Peel's class, Riju. From Mrs. Kwok's class, Keon Martin. On the 19th, from Mrs. Kwok's class, Leo Chang. And from Miss Masamia's class, Roland Reed. On the 20th, from Miss Hensel's class, McKenna Maldonado. And from Mrs. Nguyen's class, Luca Tricano. On the 22nd, from Mrs. So's class, Josie Bray. From Miss Simmons' class, Jacob Lynn. And from Miss Aiken's class, Maven Rankin. Finally, from Miss French's class on the 22nd, Luna Trin. On the 24th, from Mrs. Aiken's class, happy birthday to Neve Nahada. And from Mrs. FF's class, Levi Pruce. On the 26th, from Mrs. Kwok's class, Valentina De La Cruz. From Miss Masamia's class, Ezra Ong. From Mrs. Busenis' class, Cameron Sim. And from Miss Peel's class, Skylar Yiv. On the 27th, from Miss Simmons' class, Sienna Alexander. From Mrs. Otani's class, Saham Hernandez. From Miss Hansel's class, Nathan Lubman. From Mrs. DeSena's class, Ian Perez. And from Miss Hahn's class, Ivy Perez. And then from Mrs. FF's class, Grayson Yokogawa. On the 28th, from Mrs. Kwok's class, a happy birthday to Nate Smith. On the 29th, from Mrs. French's class, Talia Roberts. And then finally, on the 30th, first from Mrs. Calder's class, a very happy birthday to Jordan Lapiratana Ghoul. And from Mrs. FF's class, Grayson Price. To each and every one of you, I hope you had a fantastic birthday. Come on up to the main office when you get a sec. We have something special. Just okay, so I am super excited again. I love the first day of school. And I wanted to, one of the other things that I absolutely love to do, and many of you are going to find out, and many of you already know, that I love to come into classrooms and read to kids. But on a day like today, how can I get into all classrooms? So I'm going to do it here. And so the book I have for you today, I am again really excited about. As I said, my name is Dr. Schmidt, and the book I have is a fun one about the first day of school, and it's called Mr. S. Seeing as how I'm Dr. S, I thought this one might be fun. But this one is called Mr. S by Monica Arnaldo. And as you also know, one of Dr. Schmidt's absolute favorite things to do when he gets a new book, first thing he does is he smells it. That's right. I love the smell of new books. They're fantastic. The other thing I love to do is I love to check to see is if the book jacket matches the cover of the book underneath. And so we're going to have our first little thing here, and you're going to do it right there in class. I want you to just kind of think about it for a second. How many of you think this time the book jacket and the book cover are going to be the same? Raise your hand if you think that's what's going to happen. The book jacket and the book cover are going to be the same. Okay. And how many of you think this time the book jacket and the book cover are going to be different? Raise those hands. All right. Well, let's find out here. So drum roll. We're going to find it out here. Cover of the book jacket. Cover of the book. Ha! They are different this time. And then my friends also like to see, what about the backs? Oh my goodness, they're different too. And when you open it up, because we always love to see those as well, that's what the whole book looks like here. So here we go. Here is Mr. S. Start with that. Oh, lunch bags. So many of you have those for today. Mr. S by Monica Arnaldo. The kids in room 2B could tell something was wrong. Even though it was their very first time at school, they had a sense that something was missing. Where's the teacher? Someone whispered. Shouldn't they be here by now? Asked someone else. The children looked at each other and then back toward the front of the class. Where there should have been a teacher, there was only a stack of papers, a mug of coffee, and an impressive-looking sandwich. No teacher means no rules, cheered half the class. Absolutely not, scolded the other half. But before they could argue any further, a loud thwack came from the front of the room as a ruler clattered to the ground. Who did that? The kids whispered, eyeing the teacher's desk nervously. But there was only the sandwich. The clock ticked and the mug steamed, but the sandwich lay remarkably still. You don't think, said one half of the class. Don't be ridiculous, said the other. Look, called a kid from the back of the room, pointing to the chalkboard. There, written in perfectly neat handwriting, was a name, Mr. S. As one, the children murmured, Mr. Sandwich? That settled it. Everyone got straight to work. C is for club sandwich. D is for double decker. They moved swiftly through the day's lessons. Mr. S was tough, but fair. I will not throw food. I don't know how many of you have noticed, if you can see outside the window, there's some things going on as well. Looks like some lightning struck a car out there. The kids all loved art class. Look over here. Story time ran a bit long. Next page, please. Music class was especially unconventional. Mary had a little ham, little ham, little ham. Mary had a little ham on some nice rye bread. Dr. Schmidt likes to sing too. As the day went on, some students began to wonder, is there something unusual about Mr. S? We've never had a teacher like him. We've never had a teacher at all. The children argued quietly and then not so quietly. A sandwich can't be a teacher. Why not? Yeah, there are all sorts of teachers. Piano teachers, salsa teachers, computer teachers. Is that what your teacher looks like right now? Suddenly, the door burst open. Slam! The children in room 2B were perfectly silent as a very wet man made his way to the front of the class. Children, said the man whose jacket was smoking as though it had been recently on fire, I'm sorry I'm late. The kids blinked at one another. I've had an unusual morning, he continued, so I'm afraid we didn't have time for a proper introduction. The wet and smoky man picked up a piece of chalk and began to write on the board. The children's eyes darted back and forth between the two fingers at the front of the class. I'm Mr. Spencer. You're principal. And I see you've already met your teacher, Mr. S. Keep up the great work, everyone. I can tell this is a special group. Looking around the room, the children had to agree. We never doubted you, said Mr. Sandwich, said half the class. Well, maybe just for a minute, said the other half. Mr. S was composed as ever. That's quite all right, children, but actually my name isn't Mr. Sandwich. The S stands for... What do you think it stands for? Oh my goodness. Well, on that, I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. I am super excited to get to each and every one of these classrooms and get to say hi to you in person. I just want you to know this is going to be an absolutely amazing year. I love each and every one of you. Go out there and do amazing things. Enjoy this first day. Enjoy this school year. Take care, everybody.